Alrighty. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's live training session. Today we're going to be talking about excessive weight, or in other terms, obesity. And what does that actually mean? How bad is it currently in our country? Why is it that way? And what can be done to essentially for you to overcome it? So first we're going to talk about a couple of statistics. According to the latest data, about 42% of Americans are obese, and about 35% on top of that are overweight. So roughly that means about 77% of Americans are either overweight or obese. So obviously this is almost, I guess, over two-thirds of our population, over three-quarters of our population is overweight. And this is very concerning for many reasons. One, obviously, the cost associated with this, because typically people who are overweight have more health problems, so therefore they have more health issues that need to be treated, which obviously that costs more when you have to have that done. Right now, there's about 120 million people in the country who are obese, and that costs about 1.7 trillion, that's with a T, trillion dollars every year, as far as indirect and direct costs, which we'll get into in a little bit here. A concerning factor is the obesity prevalence in children and adolescents. So for those between, and that would be kids from 2 to the age of 19. And it's about 19.3% of that age demographic is obese, or 14.4 million, if that's a little bit easier to comprehend. And the concerning factor is that a new study from the American Obesity Association just released, it says that by 2025, so that's literally just in 4 years, 50% of Americans will be obese. So that number, we're currently at 42%, so we're going to go up 8% in 4 years. That's huge. And by 2030, that number is going to be at 60%. So 9 years from now, 60% of our country is going to be obese unless we do something about it. And so exactly what does obese mean? And so anything that a weight that is higher than what is considered healthy for a given height is described as being overweight or obese. Often a tool used to calculate this is body mass index, or BMI. And this is when you take a person's weight and divide it by their height. And while this is a good indication, it's not 100% foolproof. It's important to note that it doesn't distinguish between muscle or fat or anything like that. But usually, especially given the circumstances, if you follow the formula, it can give you an indication of risk factor. So if your BMI is less than 18.5, that means you're actually underweight, which also can have health problems associated with it. If your BMI is 18.5 to less than 25, that means you're at a healthy weight. So that's a good range to be in. If your BMI is 25 to under 30, that means you're overweight. And if your BMI is 30 or higher, that's when you fall into that obese range. Obesity is also frequently subdivided into categories. So class 1 would be if your BMI is between 30 to under 35. Class 2 is if it's 35 to under 40. And class 3 is if your BMI is 40 or higher. This class 3 is also known as a severe obesity. For children, measuring this is a little bit different. It's based off of their levels of height and weight compared to other children of the same age and gender. And it's usually measured in like percentiles. So often if you go with your child to the doctor, they'll have like and all this other stuff on there, and it's, you know, up and down, there's a line in the middle, and your child will be either close to that or above it or below it or something along those lines. So for children, if they are in the 5th percentile or less, that means they're underweight. If they're at 5th percentile to 85th percentile, which is obviously a wide range, they're at a healthy weight. If they're 85th but less than 95 percentile, that means they're overweight. And if they're above 95 percentile, that means they are obese. Obviously, there's health factors, problems that are associated with that, which we're going to dive into here in just a little bit. Um, so now it comes down to the question of why does this matter? Why does your weight have such an impact? And if you are obese, you're at risk for many different leading causes of death, not only here in the United States, but across the globe. And this can include things like diabetes, heart disease, stroke, certain types of cancer. It also increases your risk of high blood pressure, having high LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, low HDL cholesterol, which is your good cholesterol, high level of triglycerides, gallbladder disease, arthritis, sleep apnea. It also is associated with poor mental health outcomes and an overall reduced quality of life. In fact, the recent COVID pandemic has highlighted just how impactful weight is. Over 60% of deaths related to the COVID-19 pandemic are attributable to obesity and all of the health problems that it causes. So this is hugely important as far as understanding this. Obesity during childhood is also very harmful. Not only do they have all the same potential risks of having all the things I just mentioned for adults, but if a child is obese, they're also more likely to be obese as an adult and have more severe complications. So this is why seeing a trend where we're having a rise in childhood obesity is so concerning, because we are setting these individuals up to have a lifetime of health problems and all of the impacts that has. And this gets down to the cost. Obviously, besides the cost to your health, which is significant and probably the most important, because if you don't have your health, then you're usually in for a world of trouble and have a shorter life. But the economic impact that this has for individuals, not just the country globally, but on a grand scale, but for individually, you have direct costs and indirect costs. Direct costs include having any preventative diagnostic or treatment services. Indirect costs are related to sickness and death and loss in productivity, which can be being absent from work, decreased productivity while at work, and having some form of disability. And all of these things add up over time. Therefore, you can see that disproportionately, people who are overweight and obese have more medical costs, have to spend more time going to the doctor, have to do certain activities that those who are not obese don't have to worry about. And this is where it gets so concerning, is because not only are they at a disadvantage from a health standpoint, now they're becoming even more disadvantaged because of an economic standpoint. And this has, a compounding effect on their life. And so now that we understand why it matters, what the cost is, why is it increasing at the rate it is? And unfortunately, it's a combination of complex factors that are related to the environment, related to individual behavior. And so I'm going to try to break that down into easy to understand components here. Obviously, you have behaviors that are individual, such as physical activity or inactivity, your dietary patterns, any type of medications you use, and the environment that you live in. And this is what plays a huge factor for many people, is that if you're in an environment where you don't have access or the knowledge or skills to be able to exercise in a constructive, healthy way so you don't get injured, or know how to have and prepare nutritious meals, that can be a problem. And it also gets into the accessibility of both of those, which we'll touch on in just a minute. But we're going to circle back to individual factors, and as far as the concept of how do you get to being overweight. And typically that is, you have to have a balance of calories you take in versus calories you expend during the day. And or for obesity or overweight sickness to occur, you are taking in more calories than you're actually getting rid of. And this is very easy to do in our modern society. Um, because of the fact we have easy accessible food to go that we can go through a drive-through and pick up, and because our schedules are so busy that by doing it, yeah, you get food, but is it really good quality food? And we'll go circle back to that here in just a second. Right now, we're going to focus on the physical activity guidelines for Americans. And they recommend that most adults get at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity um, a week. And in addition to that, you should do 2 days a week of strength training. Um, for children, it's from 6 years old to 17 years old, it's 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a week. And for kids 3 to 5, it's just having them be active during the day. Um, Unfortunately, the current statistics show that fewer than 1 in 4 children actually meet this requirement. And for adults, it's just 1 in 4. Barely a quarter of adults actually meet the activity guidelines that they're supposed to. And then we come to the dietary guidelines, because obviously the two interplay here, that the whole emphasis is on having a diet that is rich in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, low fat and fat-free dairy products, and drinking plenty of water. Which is why I keep my water bottle on my desk. And so that way it's there. I don't forget it. The guidelines are also recommending limiting your food and beverages that have added sugars, solid fats, or sodium in them. And it's unfortunate, the data shows that fewer than 1 in 10 children and adults eat the recommended daily amounts of vegetables. Vegetables are key. They have lots of nutrients. They usually have a lot of fiber. They're really good for you. So to hear this, that can sort of give a hint as to what's going on here. Also, another huge factor that we here in the United States are more prone to do is to drink beverages that are in high caloric beverages that provide no real nutritional value, such as sodas or other sweetened drinks. Alcohol is another drink. The problem is the way your body processes liquid calories is not the same as it processes solid calories. So you don't get the same cues internally that when you take in a whole can or bottle of soda that you would if you actually sat down and eat a meal of the same calorie equivalent. And this is why it's very easy to take in more calories than you burn, because we're not necessarily always aware of what we're actually consuming. And part of the issue is what I was getting to before, is the whole idea is that many Americans lack healthy, affordable food and places to be active. In fact, nearly 30 million Americans live in neighborhoods that don't have easy access to affordable, nutritious food. And this is part of the problem. When you have fast food restaurants, chains on every corner, yes, those are easily accessible. They're cheap, they're quick, they're easy. I get it. I mean, who doesn't love a good burger and fries? I won't get into the debate on which fast food is better than the other, but yes. And so that's part of what we need to shift as a country is getting the access to better, healthy food to more people. And the other component is that people don't have access to safe places to exercise. You don't need to be able to afford a gym. All you really need is a pair of shoes and to be able to walk outside safely, without the risk of getting injured or anything along those lines. And so these are some considerations that we need to have as we're trying to tackle this whole obesity epidemic that we're seeing. So a couple other factors can contribute to weight gain besides lack of physical activity and not having the most nutritious diet. One of them is particular to women. Obviously, pregnancy, weight gain is common, and some women find it difficult to lose this weight after a baby's born. Another big factor is when people quit smoking, they often tend to replace their smoking with eating, so therefore they gain weight. But the bottom line with this is that not smoking is key, and that's important for your health. And so go ahead, quit smoking, and then if needed, get help to lose the weight if you gain any. Not getting enough sleep or getting too much sleep throws off your internal hormones, which alters the way your appetite is registered. It can either increase it or decrease it. If you're under stress, that it can also affect your eating habits. Your gut bacteria is huge. We're just really starting to understand just the impact that this has. But it can contribute to weight gain or difficulty losing weight. We're just not quite sure of the actual mechanics of it yet. And then another big factor, which obviously a lot of people struggle with, is if you've tried to lose weight previously and then had a rapid weight gain after. This yo-yoing up and down actually slows your metabolism, which makes it harder in the future to lose weight and maintain that weight loss. So all of these factors combined can obviously contribute to weight gain and then the health risks that come with that. And a lot of people often ask the question, what about genetics? How does genetics play into this? Well, genetics can have some factors in it. It's the changes that occur over a human population just happen so slowly that it's not actually contributing to the obesity epidemic we're seeing right now. The rapid increase in the number of people who are overweight cannot be from genetic factors, unfortunately. However, the reason why people ask this is because you go to the doctor, they want to know about your family history. And the whole concept with that is not necessarily that it's a genetic thing, but it's more of an environmental thing. Obviously, families share very similar eating patterns, activity levels, typically along those lines. And so it's not just the genes, but it's the environment factor here that contributes to why your family history is important to understanding your risk for obesity and any health problems. Well, now that we have a pretty thorough understanding of what's going on, the question is, what's the outlook here? The good news is that even modest weight loss can improve or prevent health problems. This is very important as far as when it comes to treating it. It's as far as understanding what the goal is. And that is obviously the overall goal is to reach and stay at a healthy weight. Because this lowers your risk of developing any complications from obesity or any other health issues. And this is what most people dread hearing, is that all weight loss programs require changes to your eating habits and your physical activity level. So the initial goal of most treatment plans is to lose a modest amount of weight, which is somewhere between 5 to 10% of your total weight that you're currently at. Obviously, the more weight you lose, the greater the benefits you're going to see. So some key tips here are to avoid drastic, unrealistic diets. These are not going to help you keep the weight off long term. You're going to see like an instant drop in weight, but then it's going to become harder and harder to maintain because most of these type of diets are very restrictive and it's not fun to follow for a long period of time. So that's where these just don't work. And then be prepared if you're going down a path of a comprehensive weight loss plan of following that for at least 6 months. It's going to take at least that long to get your body down to where you want to as far as a weight. And then you enter the maintenance phase. And that phase you have to be in for at least a year for you to maintain and keep your body at that weight, that your desired weight. So that's where this is the long haul approach. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes time, but you have to be willing to invest that time. So the first step in any sort of weight loss plan is reviewing your typical eating and drinking habits. Obviously, you need to know how many total calories are you actually taking in each day. Therefore, you can start pinpointing things that you can eliminate from your diet. when you want to lose weight, obviously you need to restrict how many calories you're taking in, but you can't restrict it so much that your body's not getting the nutrients it needs to survive. Um, for most people, it's broken down by gender. For women, somewhere between 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day is what you should be striving for. For men, it's somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day. So yeah, obviously, you should talk to your doctor. They're going to help guide you in a safe, healthy approach to determining what amount of calories you need to consume. So the next step of this, once you know what your calories are that you want to take in, now you need to be aware of what calories are in the food you're taking in. Some foods have large amounts of calories for little tiny portion sizes. Good examples of these are all the yummy sweet desserts, like candies, anything that's processed food, all the good stuff. Those have lots of calories for small portions. On the other hand, you have other foods that you can eat large portions of that have limited amounts of calories. And these things are like fruits and vegetables. Um, so the key thing is have more of those. This will help reduce hunger pains, and you're not taking in as many calories. Overall, they're better for you nutrition-wise, and this is why the more of those you take in, the better you're just going to feel. Plus, you're not taking in all the extra calories. Um, so then, once you have that figured out, you need to focus on trying to eat a more plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grain type carbohydrates. Then you also need to focus on lean proteins. This can usually include beans, lentils, soy, lean meats. If you like fish, try incorporating that into your diet twice a week. It's got some healthy fats in there. Everything's really good. Obviously, limit salt and extra sugar. Keep the amount of fat small and make sure it's coming from healthy sources like olive oil, canola oil, nut oil, um, and then keep the sweetened beverages to a minimum, if not cutting them out completely, if you can tolerate that. And as we mentioned before, the quick fix option, it just doesn't work. So now we're going to focus from the diet component to the physical component. Obviously, this is an essential part of being able to lose and maintain weight. Um, if you're overweight, you should strive to get about 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity activity. This will help prevent further weight gain and maintain a loss of any modest amount of weight. So to achieve more significant weight loss, you're going to need to increase your exercise about 300 minutes or more a week. That seems like a lot, right? Well, if you take an hour or 60 minutes and divide it into that, that's I think about 5 or 6 days of exercise a week. That's a lot to initially start out with. That's why build up to that and make that your goal. You don't expect to be able to do that right out of the gate. And I mean, even just walking is a good way to start. Get your body, you don't have to go be a runner, you don't have to go do anything excessive. Just get out there, walk, put on a pair of shoes if you can get to a park, if you can walk around your neighborhood, if it's a safe environment. That is key. Obviously, if you have any questions, you're worried about your health, make sure you're talking to your doctor before you start any type of physical program. Um, Another key tip here is any extra movement helps. So when with this, it's the park further away at the grocery store. You got to walk further from your car to and from. That's helpful. Do rev up your household chores. Find a way to get up and move periodically throughout the day. Wear a pedometer. Nowadays, with smartwatches and all these other things, they're readily accessible as far as apps go. This will help you keep track of how many steps you actually take a day. Try to build up to 10,000 steps a day. You'll be surprised at how much of a difference that actually makes. And then the other component of both of these is doing what they call behavior modification. It's to help you make those lifestyle changes because that's where the struggle comes in. Everybody's used to, we all like our habits. No one wants to change, that's hard. Who wants to change that? I don't want to put in the effort, right? So this is where you have to examine what your current habits are. What causes you to overeat? What factors? Is it stress? Are there certain situations that does this? And then you can have a spot to start from. as far as, okay, well, I know this type of situation triggers me to, want cookies and chips, then, well, maybe try to avoid that situation. If you can't, then have something else on hand to snack on. So you're not diving for the cookies or chips, but maybe you have an apple. At least you've got something to eat. Sometimes for excuse me, sometimes with behavior modification, it involves some form of counseling, which can be one-on-one or can be sort of a support group, which this can be incredibly helpful because then you have people you're connected with who are going through the same thing you are, and the power of having a group and a community is amazing, especially when you're trying to do something and you're doing it together. So obviously this right here, the change to diet, change to exercise, and all of that is the key core components of making sure that you are on track to losing the weight that you want. However, so sometimes individuals struggle with this for a variety of reasons. So there are prescription weight loss medications that your doctor can talk to you about if you've gotten to that point where you're not getting to your goal with just diet and exercise alone. The key thing here is that the medications are supposed to be used in conjunction with diet, exercise, and behavior modification, not instead of them. You're not replacing those with the medication. The main purpose of them is to help you stick to a low-calorie diet because they stop the hunger pain in your stomach and increase your sense of fullness. So that way you're not as hungry, you just tend to eat less. That's going to cut down on the calories you consume. So typically, for your doctor to recommend this, you need to have been doing exercise and diet programs and haven't worked with your body mass index of being 30 or higher, or your BMI is 27 or higher, and you also have medical complications such as diabetes, high blood pressure, like sleep apnea. So you need to have those factors, the combination of those factors, in order for your doctor to go down the path of saying, hey, let's take a look at trying some medications. For those, if you have a BMI of 30 or above and you're not having success with diet, exercise, and you're having some complications, your doctor might recommend a specific procedure, which reduces the size of your stomach and the amount of food that you can comfortably consume. Often it's a minimally invasive procedure. Sometimes they'll put like a saline-filled balloon in your stomach, so that decreases the amount of volume that your stomach can hold. So that way, once again, similar to the medication, it just makes you feel fuller quicker. For those with severe obesity, they have weight loss or bariatric surgery, and this is an option if you've tried all the other methods and as far as diet, exercise, behavior modification, and it's not working, and you basically have extreme obesity. Your BMI is 40 or higher, or you have a BMI of 35 or to 39.9, and you also have serious health-related problems related to your obesity, such as obviously diabetes, high blood pressure, and all that again. And the other key factor here is you need to be committed to making the lifestyle changes in order for the weight to stay off. Because even if you go through this whole process of having surgery done, but you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to gain the weight right back. And even so, that's why your doctor wants to make sure that you are going to be able to sustain the weight loss. Some common, and part of this is because while these are the great for losing weight, they're often come with a significant amount of risk factors. So that's why doctors want to make sure that before they do it, the patient who they're operating on is actually ready for it. Some examples of this are like gastric banding, gastric bypass surgery, a gastric sleeve, a biliopancreatic diversion with a duodenal switch, which that's obviously very technical. There's a lot that goes on into that. But the bottom line with any of these is that it's common to regain weight no matter the obesity treatment method that you try, whether it's just diet and exercise and behavior modification, you're trying weight loss pills, if you're trying some sort of procedure or surgery, you will regain the weight if you don't continue to sustain the same type of lifestyle, if you revert back to your old habits, essentially. Um, so in order to prevent this, or in order to prevent obesity in a overall general sense, um, obviously the steps aren't that unfamiliar. We've sort of covered them already. It's daily exercise, healthy diet, and a long-term commitment to watching what you eat and drink. You have to think of this as, and this is where you have to make it sustainable and enjoyable, because if you don't, then you're just going to give up and be right back to where you started, and then you start the whole process over again. So this is where, to prevent weight gain or prevent regaining weight, is you have 100 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity activity, physical activity a week. And don't forget strength training, because that's key too. You don't want to lose muscle in there. So you need to do that. You need to focus on low-calorie, nutritious, dense foods. Eat 3 regular meals a day. Don't snack, um, but still enjoy small amounts of high-fat, high-calorie foods as an infrequent treat, whatever that is. For me, and I've just recently recommitted to this, is really focusing on watching what I'm eating. I have a habit of, if I'm bored, whatever, I snack. And so by eliminating that and instead reaching for my water, drinking some water when I feel like, yeah, I'm bored, it gives me that sense of fullness. I'm not taking in any calories. And then once a week, I get to, it's essentially my cheat day. I don't go overboard. I mean, but it's essentially my cheat dinner. It's the 1 meal a week right now, until I get down to the weight that I want to get at, and then we'll readjust that somewhat. But that's where you can't punish yourself, because then you're not going to be like, I don't want to keep this up. So remember, put those small treats in there. If it's hard to do it once a week, try once a day. That's better than snacking all day long. But find what works for you. Obviously, know and avoid the food traps, as we were talking about before. What are the triggers that cause you to eat? What are certain situations that cause you to want to eat more or drink more or whatever it is? And then do what you can to either avoid them or develop strategies to help you deal with it in the moment. And then the other key thing that many people forget is monitor your weight regularly. At least once a week, you should weigh yourself. Try to weigh yourself at the same time of the day. So personally for me, I weigh myself before breakfast, and I take it to an extreme. I weigh myself every morning, especially right now, because I'm seeing changes, and that's important, is understanding. If you catch any fluctuations up early, then you can catch them before they get out of hand, and then you can start any corrective measures that you need. And then obviously the other thing is being consistent, and this is incredibly hard. This is where every week, the weekends, on vacation, holidays, do your best, and this is to stay on task as far as how many calories you're taking in on a consistent basis. And that's where, yeah, enjoy, but don't overindulge. Remember, this is about being vigilant over the long term. Think about your health on a long-term scale. How do you want to feel 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you're older and you want to be active, you want to be able to participate in activities that you enjoy now, and to be able to do that, that's where focusing on the things every day, a little bit each day, makes it easy. And once those habits get in there, then it's easy to stick with them. It's just making this change and getting it to where it's like, okay, I can do this, and get that in your head. And then when you see those results, it's like, oh my God, I feel great, I look great. And that's what will continue to drive you to keep doing it. So just remember, it's 2 key components. It's diet and physical activity. And if you get those 2 in balance, you're going to be golden. It's keeping the weight off, it's maintaining that weight loss, and that's what everyone's looking for, right? I mean, that's what we're all striving for. I know for me, that's something that I'm working on, so don't feel that you're alone in this. Obviously, it's hard to see me because I'm sitting down, but yeah, I mean, if you looked at me, I would say probably 5 months ago, you wouldn't know. I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference, but I can tell. I've been on this journey now for about 5, 6 months as far because I got injured when I was running about a year ago, put on some extra weight because I kept eating like I was still running, and obviously I wasn't, and saw a fluctuation upwards. Um, so I'm down, yeah, the max weight was 150, and as of this morning, I'm down 15 pounds. It's been a up-down journey as far as the weight over the past 5 months, but steadily in the past probably 3 weeks have noticed downward trend. And so, I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It's just you've got to be in the right frame of mind and then be vigilant on what it is that you are taking in, how much exercise you're doing, and even if it's not fun, sometimes, that means those treats that you get, that reward that you get every week or whatever you set your goal for, that's so key. It is making that well worthwhile. So pick something you really, really want, and every day if you're struggling with it, just keep thinking about it, and then therefore when you get to have it, that's what's like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And obviously you just look great and feel better. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I know this one's a little bit longer than normal, but I just felt it's such an important topic because it affects so many people. And obviously, I want to hopefully help to clarify things and inspire some people to be able to do what they need to get on the path that they want to get on. But if you have any questions, any comments, please don't hesitate to reach out either in the comment section under this video, send a post in the group, send me a message, and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. But otherwise, until then, I will see you guys in our next training next week, and I will post that in there and be on the lookout because I have a couple of things I'm going to be posting as well. But otherwise, I will see you guys soon, and until then, stay healthy.